All right. Okay, so now we've gone through myth number 2. And the myth was that female advisors are naturally better at marketing to women. We've found that men can really excel. We've found that women can really struggle. It's not intuitive, right? Okay, so we're going to move on to myth number 3, third and final myth. The myth is generic and traditional messaging reaches all women equally. Arwen, how do you know who comes to your events and that our blanket messaging is leaving people out? It's a good question. Same question I had in the beginning. So when we started marketing to women, we actually were looking at a couple things. Who typically came to our events? Well, we found out they were predominantly single. 50, sometimes upwards of 75% of the room, married or unmarried, never married, divorced, or widowed. Okay, but we also put something on our turn-in sheet, and it's still on the sheet to this day. And it's a statement. It says, "The number one reason I attended this event is the invitation said women's only." Yes, no, explain. 38% of women say the number one reason they're there is the invitation said women's only on it. And for many of the women that wasn't their number one reason, they would check mark no, but then in the explanation line, they would say it's one of the reasons that I came, right? So we found that many of the women in attendance were single, but we also found that there were common threads that a lot of these women share. This is not everybody, but just a lot of them. Number one thing that we found is many of these women have never sought help from a financial advisor. Number two, they're looking for a unique and tailored message specific for them as a woman. And number three, they're a little bit intimidated to sit at a table with men. It's just what it is. Because if you think about it this way, okay, if you were giving an event and you were using half round tables, so nobody sits at the front half of the table, and it was a 5 top, so it's 5 people sitting on the back half of the table. So your team grabs 2 couples, brings them, sits them side by side, and puts the single gal right on the end. So already she has nobody to her left. Now if she's lucky, she gets sat next to the wife, who she's more likely to engage in small talk with. If she's unlucky, she gets sat next to another woman's husband. There's no connection that's going to be made there. Well, we sure hope not. And that's what a lot of women are a little bit intimidated about. Because when remember, Randy did events for 17 years, very skilled at it. Never women's events, but he always did traditional events. And then for 16 months, he didn't even see me give this event. So when he finally showed up for my first event, he was shocked at what was going on in the room before I ever took stage. Women were laughing and they're talking and the room's all abuzz and, oh my gosh, my kids go to school with your kids and oh, I did that too. And this is a great doctor. It's what women do. They're connectors, they're relational. They like to engage with one another. And that's what they feel safe doing when they're sitting at a table with just women, whether those women are married or not, it doesn't matter. And that's what was so remarkable about what we were seeing. But the thing is, these women, they're not like helpless women. They're not victim women. They're, incredible badasses in their vocation. They're doctors and attorneys and mortgage brokers and real estate agents and teachers and incredible mothers. They're great in what they do, but they have a hesitation about what they think they should know about their finances. Like this gal that I sat down with who was earning $300,000 a year working in sales at Dell. For many years, more than a decade, she was the only woman in her department. Okay, making $300,000. She started from zero at 50, zero net worth, to when she came in to sit with me at 69, she had $750,000 saved for her retirement. It's remarkable. I see so many women do that. It's incredible. And so obviously she had no trouble hanging with the boys, but she was 69 when she came in to see me. And my invitation was the first invitation for her memory that she ever received that said women's only on it. She was 69. Can you imagine in the prior 15 years how many invitations she received? And she didn't answer any of them. But it wasn't because she didn't know how to act around men. She just was fearful and intimidated about what she thought she should know about her finances. And so that kept her from seeking help. And a lot of women fall into this category. And you know, one of the things that I often hear from advisors is they'll say, Arwen, I did a women's event, but there was just so many more unqualified or non-qualified women in the room. Let me help with a bit of reframing, okay? If you're doubling the number of households in the room, by law of numbers, you're likely going to double the number of non-qualified people you have in the room. That's just something to keep in mind. Keep it in perspective. But this is the piece I want you to think about. I had a gal come to an event. She came to me afterwards. She was like, oh my gosh, this is the best event ever. I just felt so pampered, and it was just the dinner, and I haven't had a great dinner like this. And I mean, she was going on and on and on and on and on. It was just the sweetest thing. I don't know who would ever use the word pampered about a financial event, but pretty great. And so she came in to meet with me. She had $20,000 to her name. That was it. There was nothing that I could do for her. And so I had already scheduled 50 minutes of my time to spend with her. She had committed her time to come in and meet with me. So now I had to figure out, what am I going to do with the rest of my time so I can do my one job, which is to leave her better than I found her. So as we started talking, come to find out her daughter, who she was afraid was following in the same financial footsteps, she was worried about that. So I grabbed a book off my bookshelf, signed it personalized to her daughter, and gave it to her mom to give to her. That woman left my office so grateful. And my next event, she brought 3 coworkers. One of them basically kicking and screaming. It was her cube mate who was so terrified about coming because she thought I was going to be like a used car salesman, right? Or just take all of her money or something. But her cube mate was retiring in 2 months and had never sought help from a financial advisor. And so she was just like, I'm not taking over an answer. You have to go. These people are great, right? So she brings her friend. The friend ends up making an appointment. I meet with her. She becomes our client. So we took that woman who was terrified from complete financial insecurity. She had $450,000 saved. Complete financial insecurity to total financial security. When you swing a woman on a pendulum that far, from that feeling to this, they become a raving fan. Oh my gosh, that woman has referred us more clients than anybody I can remember in current history. But if we would have done as many advisors do and financially qualified people to come to our seminar, the woman who brought her would never have made it in the room. But she brought 3 coworkers that I didn't have to work for. And one of them ended up being our client. So when you serve women with intention and you meet them where they're at, not only are you going to have access to that fact that women refer 3 times more, right? But you're also going to help women to change their own thoughts and behaviors about money, and at least be able to change the next generation and the curses that run through so many families across our nation because they're not educated. But there is one thing I will say. If it was a 22-year-old, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, I need to leave that spot for somebody who my message is a retirement planning message is appropriate for. But financial qualification, that's something I'm not going to do. Because I don't know who that woman knows, who she works with, what that looks like. So please, please keep that in mind. Okay? So BlackRock did a study. As we're thinking about these women, BlackRock did a study in 2020. 38% of women invest in the market. I should probably say only 38% of women invest in the market. That means 62% don't. 31% of those that don't invest in the market feared losing everything. And 55% of women, more than the majority of women, say investing isn't for people like me. People like me? I hear people like me statements and these thoughts about I'm not worthy from women all the time. Because what's happened is her sister or a coworker or the media has convinced her, if you don't have at least $500,000, you're never going to be able to retire. And so she shrinks back and just goes, I don't think I'm going to seek advice. I don't have enough. I don't have enough worth. And for a lot of us women, that starts to become very personal, that I'm not worthy. So how do we reach these women, the 55% who say investing isn't for people like me? Well, here's 2 tips to be able to reach those women.